Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Good day to all of you out there following us on Leadership Podcast. We're on the Money Radio, and today being Thursday, we are discussing tourism. The topic we are discussing today is Nigeria at 61. How far so far? Uh, I'm your host, Case Hammond. In the studio here with me is Jerry Emerson. Jerry, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Case.
We also have a guest, and that guest is going to do much of the talking today. His name is Prince Charles Dixon. He's a development practitioner, and he's the team lead of Tri Center. Mr. Dixon, you're welcome. So, let's give a little a rough rundown of where we have come from. And this is Nigeria is 61 now. In some climes, they celebrate Diamond Jubilee at 60, some at 75. But at least last year we celebrated Diamond Jubilee. That means we are supposed to be somewhere right now in the tourism industry. How far are we?
Yes, we are 61 years,
Yes.
as a country, and we've come a long way. We have come a long way, and we are supposed to be seeing a whole lot, especially in that sector, tourism sector. Because the tourism sector actually started gathering momentum as at 1988, when
That's about 28 years after independence.
Oh yes, by that calculation. It started gathering momentum from that time. What we had then was a military government,
Yeah.
in place, and during that era, the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation was formed.
Okay.
Yes, and further in 2000, the year 2000, the Ministry of Tourism was also, formed. So by that progression, it was to, begin to work in that sector, to bring up the sector to, to begin to work effectively.
Yeah.
So so far, where are we today? Like the topic is so far, tourism so far, so far. Where are we today?
Yeah.
If you look at in 2019, if you look at how much tourism contributed to our GDP,
How much was
it
it?
was as at 2019, before the COVID,
Yeah.
it was at 5.1%, contribution to our GDP. And if you want to do a comparison, between other countries, other African countries like
Yeah.
Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, like Ghana's tourism travels and tourism contribution,
Yeah.
to Ghana's GDP, as at the same year, 2019, was at 10.18, 10.15%.
Yeah.
For Kenya, was at 10.8%. That's to show you that Nigeria is still lagging behind. There's
Yeah.
still a lot that has to be done in that sector. So that's where we are, and we need to see more work in that sector. Not just that sector has to be prioritized.
Yes, it has to. Interestingly, the World Tourism Day was celebrated sometime this week.
Yes, it was on Monday.
On Monday, World Tourism Day was celebrated, and the theme of this year's World Tourism Day, spearheaded by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, The theme of that of this year's World Tourism Day is toward inclusive growth.
Yes.
Yes, it's interesting. That theme is fitting because tourism had been contributing uh, healthily.
Yes.
Let me not say tremendously. I would say healthily to the country's growth. In some, the World Tourism Organization estimates that annually tourism contributes something like 10% of the world's GDP. Uh, it employs hundreds of millions of people, and this industry was hardest hit as a
Yeah.
result of COVID-19. And with COVID-19 hitting it that hard, of course, travels virtually ceased last year, only beginning to
To pick up.
reawaken. Um, we see also that not just travels, but tourism was virtually dead. Who will go to places? If even now, there are restrictions because in one place after the other, before you can even get a visa or travel or
Yes.
to another place, you have to come with a certificate of vaccine.
Vaccine, yeah.
Yeah. Without that, you hardly be allowed in the country, and that includes Nigeria. And those vaccines, they also are costly. Yes, they are costly. If you don't have it,
And even for let me even say this as a result of the pandemic.
yeah,
Eh, as at there's a report as at last year, 2020, when the pandemic started. Today, about 700 and something Nigerians have lost their job in that industry,
700,000.
and about 700 plus. Yes, 1,000 plus have
That's
lost their
serious.
job in that sector, the tourism sector.
700,000
Yes,
have lost their jobs in
yes.
the tourism sector in Nigeria. Yeah, that is a hard hit.
So you can see what the
That
industry.
is not very far from the federal government. The federal government is the highest employer of labor. That must be followed by the tourism industry. Yes. Uh, that is a hard hit. And even up to now, that sector has not really resurrected yet because you see that there are many obstacles. Besides the fact that you have to be vaccinated, which many people are averse to. Um, when you get to another country, you have to be quarantined at least for a few days before you can be allowed into that country. And that quarantining may be at your own cost. So all of that contributes to the industry being still suppressed and it hasn't recovered yet from that COVID-19. And that is a big blow. That is quite a big blow.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's a huge setback that for the industry.
Now, this being a huge setback, um, like we were saying, the theme of this year's World Tourism Day is talking about inclusive growth, tourism for inclusive growth. So, for Nigeria to get back on its feet, for Nigeria to get economy to get back on its feet, that industry which employs up to 700 or which has lost up to seven if you say up to 700,000 persons have lost their jobs in the tourism industry, that
Hospitality.
goes to say that the industry actually employs millions.
Yes, yes.
So to get this industry back or to get the economy back, that industry has to be given attention. You agree with me? It
Definitely.
has to be given maximum attention because if you have an industry where up to 700,000 persons have lost their jobs,
And
it tells so badly on the economy.
We have a tourism master plan in the country,
What is it?
and I wonder why it is still not fully, implemented.
Could you broach our listeners a bit on the tourism master plan?
Now, without going deep into it,
Yeah.
the master plan is was formulated to give life to that industry
Yeah.
by creating jobs, creating jobs and setting the industry to be at par or even much more than at a different level from other countries in Africa.
Hmm.
So, but as of today, you agree with me that that master plan doesn't seem to be effectively, in action to achieve, this objective. So that I think is part of the reason why the industry isn't doing well. So that has to be government at all levels, needs to revisit that master plan so as to revamp that sector. I was reading out the percentage of GDP, and I mentioned Nigeria and other parts of the country, but in other countries in Africa.
Yeah.
And you see that we are lagging behind.
Of course, we are lagging behind.
So,
But in terms of numbers, although the country is lagging behind in terms of contribution to GDP, in terms, if you look at the fact that a place like Ghana's GDP is Ghana's GDP is probably just about the size of Lagos.
okay.
Yeah. And in terms of population, of course, Ghana's population is something around is something million. If you look at that, the number of persons who are in the industry in Nigeria are more than those in Ghana, but
Yes.
because we have a large population, it reflects better on their part in terms of percentage.
But of course, there are other things that factors that are responsible for how much they fare in that sector.
Yeah,
In terms of security, which is paramount.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
security is central, and of course,
Actually, you
infrastructure.
know, the country, Nigeria's tourism industry, it goes beyond the tourism industry. We have just had this downward spiral, and it's because of a number of factors, including this very issue of insecurity.
That is like I mentioned, security is very very important because as a tourist, I wouldn't want to go to a destination where my life could be at risk. So and as well as infrastructure, if those things are not in place, I can't travel to a place like that. So these things are really not there. You agree with me in the country today,
Yeah,
and that is why I was reading a thread. I was reading a thread last week, where a poor company, someone asked that why is Nigeria not included in the list of countries in Africa for tourism,
yeah.
and the person replied, I said no, there are lots of things factors that are
Are
against,
taken into
yes,
consideration,
taken into consideration.
including security.
Yes, he listed those, and population also, or unemployment rather, sorry,
All right.
unemployment. So those were some of the factors.
All right.
I don't know if we
You're
can.
still on to Money Radio. We're talking about tourism. Nigeria at 61. How far so far? We take a short break. Please stay with us. When we come back, we'll discuss more on the way forward. And we may have our guest in the studio by that time. So please stay with us.
It's time for a standing ovation for a country once called Niger area, but now Nigeria. 8 Governor Generals. Head of states. Six presidents.
Nigeria.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it now is my very special pleasure and privilege to ask His Royal Majesty, the Sultan of Sokoto, the chairman or chairperson of the leadership group, to come forward and join me and hold on to one bit of this cloth so that we can jointly unveil the bigger, better, deeper Levoque.
You're welcome back to Morning Radio. We are on the tourism segment and we're talking about Nigeria 61. How far, so far. You're welcome back. Very soon we may be joining our guest. His name is Prince Charles Dixon. He is operating in Jos. We may join him soon. But until then, this tourism industry globally, it is expected that is projected that the tourism industry, by the time we are done with this issue of COVID-19, the industry may have lost, the global industry may have lost $4 trillion. That is astronomical.
That's quite huge.
You have an idea how much we talked about employment earlier, or how 700 and something thousand, more than 700,000 persons have lost their job in this industry. In terms of physical cash, how can we see in Nigeria?
I may not have the statistics.
If you look at the fact that the country was, or say, the country, the tourism industry contributed up to 5% of Nigeria's GDP. Nigeria's GDP is somewhere around $450 billion. 5% of that is huge. Yes, that is somewhere around $23 billion.
If you have to juxtapose it with
Yes, that's somewhere around $23 billion that this industry has lost in terms of that is to COVID-19. That is huge also
that's
for the
huge.
economy. And in terms of employment, this industry, I'm sure, is contributing a huge percent of the unemployment that we see, the youth unemployment, because the people who are tour guides, the people who run these various
people
entertainment,
who sell
they
crafts.
are the young people who constitute up to 33% of unemployment. They are young people who constitute that. It's quite sad. But let's come to another aspect because, like we said, this industry, this industry is the industry, the theme of the COVID-19, the theme of COVID-19, no, sorry,
Sorry.
2021 World Tourism
Tourism,
Day.
yes.
The theme says tourism for inclusive growth. Now, we are talking about inclusive growth. That is, for the company, sorry, for the country to recover fully, you have to have the tourism industry to follow.
You have to bring in all
Now,
of that.
that is going to be difficult because the World Tourism Organization projects that by 2023, we will have at least a healthy recovery of tourism industry from all of the loss that we have been having since 2020. But if you look at it, that is not likely for Nigeria. Why do we say so?
Because
Those countries, they have they have carried out a huge percentage of their vaccine exercise.
yes,
There are some populations in developed countries that have that vaccinated up to 70%. Some countries, a few of them, up to 80.
and some are taking booster jabs.
Some have taken the first booster jab. Some of them have taken the second booster jab. That is 3. Whereas in Africa, we haven't reached 1%. And we know that if a person is not vaccinated, the new protocol in the world today is before you can travel to another country, you have to have your jab. That is a protection, and you have to come with your certificate. That is going to be cumbersome. Is an encumbrance, really. It's an albatross on people who want to spend their money in other places. There are even some states now in Nigeria, of course, you bear with me, like Edo, a number of states, that if you don't have a certificate, if you are not taking your job, you can't perform certain activities in those states. That is likely to be an encumbrance on the revival of tourism industry in the country. Um, that means Nigeria is likely not to reach that potential up to by 2023. With just 1% vaccinated so far.
Yes, vaccine. Aside from the vaccine, but aside from the vaccine, what are we doing, you know, on our own part as a country to, you know, take for example, I mentioned the security, I mentioned the infrastructure. You understand? So these are key. These
Yeah,
two things are very key.
yeah,
You know, because if there are no good roads, yeah, to access these places, if there's no electricity, we are still grappling with the issue of electricity. If there are no yes, electricity, good roads, water, those are some of the infrastructures. You know, and if these destinations do not have these things, security, like I mentioned, if these destinations do not have these things, it becomes a problem.
it becomes a problem.
A huge
You
problem.
know, like we were saying in the studio not long ago, some of these major tourist attractions in the country, the state government is contributing very little or nothing
Or nothing.
to their to contributing to their attraction.
And
You
it's
know,
not,
where you have a major tourism site, I don't want to name names, but if where you have a major tourism site and then just to access that site, to get to that site by driving your motor car, it becomes difficult. That means access roads. It's not even there.
it's not,
Um, health facilities not
it's
there.
not,
Uh, basic things are not there. That means somehow some of the people that are the helm of affairs that are supposed to drive this potential are actually not having foresight, and that is the problem.
and in our in one of our shows, or in some of our shows, we've always been talking about, you know, government allowing private companies,
Yeah,
you know, by way of public-private partnership, you know, to come into managing some of this location, tourist destination, and that is the way out, because government cannot carry it alone. These private companies will draw up a plan, in line with the master plan, and then present it, and then manage these locations much better, much better than allowing government to run it. Allowing government to run it. So government needs to make the industry propose, open it up for private companies to come in and help to develop the sector.
And talking about government, I don't know. The state and federal government, the state governments and federal government somehow need to work in sync to get to make sure that these things work. I'll give you an example just before we close. I'll give you an example. The road, Badagry is actually a major tourism site. It's a historic tourism site. Yes, people like to see relics of the slave trade, and those are things that even in schools where those things are taught, those sites are talked about in schools, talking about history, from the primary to university level. People want to know how did slavery go on, how did what else, just to see what things were like. So many schools, I give you an example, many schools in Lagos would like their pupils, their students, and
To go on
their
excursion.
on excursion at those places. But over the past few years, there hasn't been anything like that. You know why? The road between Lagos as a city, the Lagos Cosmopolis, and Badagry was a no-go area. When I say no-go, it was a no-go area. I'm not there right now to see what's going on. I don't know the state of the road, but at least 2, 3 years back, it was a no-go area. A distance that will cover just about 45 minutes at on that road from Lagos, say from the Okuku area all the way to Badagry, which would have normally covered, let's say, 45 minutes. You will stay hours. That is, if you'll be able to reach that same day because of the state of the road. And of course, there was still politicking about who was responsible to bring that road to do that road. You see, so all of these things, their potential are actually kept behind, and I don't want to say something, so let me not go into it. To
So I
round up,
think I think government needs, before we round up, government needs to prioritize the sector.
yeah, now government needs to prioritize the sector. If not this sector, if this sector is not carried along as World Tourism Day clarified it, tourism for inclusive growth. If tourism industry is not carried along to revamp the economy, we are leaving a major segment of the economy behind, and that will not go well. It will be lopsided, and that lopsidedness will not be. It won't go well. So, listeners, thanks for being with us. That's how we'll wrap it up today. Thanks for being with me in the studio, Mr. Jerry Masin. Thanks to you, our producers. Um, Thanks very much to all of you, our listeners. We'll be back here tomorrow for another bumper edition of Money Radio. Stay blessed.